Welcome to the CodeCast podcast. Real-world insights for your daily medical coding and billing processes. And now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 114th episode of the CodeCast podcast today. Happy Hanukkah for those of you that are celebrating that this week. Merry Christmas, since it's Christmas Eve, to everyone as well. And if you're outside the U.S., Happy Kwanzaa. It's a holiday season, holiday week for sure. So today I need to bring a topic to you that isn't actually one of my favorites. But as the new year is approaching, that means patient deductibles will start over and more of a share of cost will be part of your collection activity and revenue cycle management. So when the OIG sends out an alert, you'll need to be aware of it, and they just did this past week. So I want to talk about the problems with waiving co-pays and deductibles. I used to do that back in the 90s and 2000s, and I haven't done it in a while. I have started to see it kind of start up again, but when I used to talk about it way back in the day, it used to be because I would drive by and see a bus bench that actually had something on there saying, come to our office, no out-of-pocket expense, and that was a problem, or insurance only, and that's an issue. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today so that you're prepared for 2020 and what the Office of Inspector General is saying. Also, the country has really been querying Dr. Google lately, so I'm going to give you the rundown on the top 10 health questions Americans asked Dr. Google in 2019, and some are just seriously hilarious, but it's amazing to me how many people actually look to their healthcare information online. I'll look up some things, there's no question on that, but it's kind of interesting just when you kind of think about it as a whole, that hopefully people aren't looking at that as a way to treat, just looking at it for more information. So I actually gave a webcast on that, and we want people to know that yes, you could query it, but it doesn't mean that's how you treat yourself. So we'll kind of check in on that and see what's been reported there. But first, the CodeCast podcast is also brought to you by ICD-10 Monitor. For up-to-date information on ICD-10-CM, PCS, and all things healthcare, visit ICD-10monitor.com. Also, you can register on their site for my upcoming debridement and wound care webcast series on January 8th, 2020. Click on ICD-10monitor.com and then click on ICD-10 University tab on the top of the page. Also, WA, Women in Healthcare Administration of Southern California. Women in Healthcare Administration of Southern California is a nonprofit professional association for women healthcare leaders devoted to providing forums for professional growth and career development, creating opportunities for quality networking and personal growth. wasocal.org. Also, I'll be presenting a free webinar for them on January 16th at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time on professionalism in the healthcare workplace. If you're interested, you can go to their website to register or email me for the link to the Eventbrite site to join. You don't have to be in California to join, so it is online. Again, wasocal.org. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started today. And it's just interesting when I pull up some of this information, because I get alerts and, obviously I get more publications than anybody knows what to do with. And I write articles for other publications as well. I have an article in the AAPC Monthly, Business Monthly magazine that it came out in the January edition. Thank you for Tony for showing me that it did actually pop up. But that is on the virtual visit that everybody kind of forgot about this year. And so check that out as well. But when I read some of these publications and read some of this updated information, it's interesting to me that offices just are just not aware of what's going on. And so we really need to take a good look at it, because the government continues to crack down on the routine waiver of copayments. So routine waiving of these amounts, it's a compliance risk. And the government is definitely basically saying, look, if you're doing any of these routine waivers, here is the problem we have with it. So according to the HHS, Office of Inspector General, Health and Human Services, the waivers violate the False Claim Act because providers who issue the waivers misstate the allowed charges for services, creating a false claim. Remember, you're only allowed to bill what you expect to get paid, not what you hope to get paid. And if you bill, let's say $150 for a 99214, but you already told the patient that they don't have to pay their $25 copay, then you should not have billed $150. So it should have been $125. And waivers also violate the anti-kickback statute because they encourage patients to seek more services from Medicare or other federal healthcare programs. And you're also violating a Stark 2 law saying that you can't get remuneration in, they call it in monetary benefit or in kind, meaning you can't get money for it. But if you tell a patient that, or that is, let's say, an ER doctor or is an orthopedic surgeon, or some friend of the physician that is another physician, and you say you're going to do a service for them, but they don't have to pay their out-of-pocket, and then that physician refers to your practice, you've now received money for that referral. And boy, talk about opening up all kinds of can of worms on that. Violations also can have other outcomes that are negative. Recoupments to make your payments reflect your actual charges. You can be fined. There can be some imprisonment. Yes, believe it or not, there have been physicians that have been told that there might be jail time there, but you also may have an exclusion from the federal healthcare program. So if you are a big Medicare or Medicaid practice, they could kick you out. In addition, private payers may consider routine waivers a breach of their contract. That's a big issue that's coming up right now. And remember, OIG isn't just about Medicare, but also you want to make sure that when you're dealing with waiving out of pocket, so the government has really been cracking down on this because they continue to issue advisory opinions on this topic. And they're also noticing that because patients who, part of the Affordable Care Act, which to me is just a misnomer for this high deductible health plan, but they've noticed that a lot of patients, their out-of-pocket expenses have increased almost 39% from 2017 to 2018 and 19, because now their out-of-pocket expenses are exceeding $3,000 instead of the $500 to $1,000 during what was considered to be a little bit more moderate healthcare year. And I know that some physicians, they're thinking that there could be assistance for the patients. They're saying, oh, well, I'm actually helping the patients with the high cost of healthcare. No, you're actually increasing it, because practices that are waiving these patients with these healthcare costs and waiving co-payments, you're actually giving them more ammunition where they can now whistleblow and bring that information to the government. There was a case, and I'll quote from Part B News, where there was a patient, William Henry, former CEO of Chronic Care Management Company practice, My Practice 24. He was sentenced in May to 2 years probation and ordered to pay a fine of $4,000 for aiding and abetting the theft of government property. That's what they got him on, among other things. He took part in a scheme with physicians that included a kickback, waived co-payments to patients enrolled in the chronic care management program. So it was originally filed by a disgruntled patient. And so while routine waivers of co-payments sometimes indicate a deliberate desire to defraud the Medicare program, it's also unlawful when the waiver is granted to patients for the cost of medically necessary treatment when there is no financial hardship and it's not of the poverty level. So there's only certain exceptions, and there has to be a case by case. It can't be straight across the board. So the OIG did clarify that there are certain practices that they may allow, but they're very concerned that sometimes the loose interpretation of this is a problem. So first of all, they say there must be an effort to collect the out-of-pocket from the patient. It must involve the issuance of a bill to the patient or party responsible for the patient's financial obligations, and ongoing collections if the patient's an active patient. And so they also said that you might have to you have to prove that you have constituted a genuine collective effort. Sometimes I'll see physicians say, well, I'm going to send you a bill, just ignore it. Well, you don't think patients are going to tell somebody that? Of course they are. So the other thing that they're saying is that they have some clues, and this is something they actually put a list on their website, and this was a special fraud alert list they put on their website, and I thought this was interesting. It said the practice runs advertisements with language that indicates the practice doesn't require a copayment, such as Medicare accepted as payment in full, or no out-of-pocket expense, or, now listen to this one, or when a patient is sitting in a practice's waiting room or reception area and discusses with other patients how copays and deductibles are not necessary if you order this test in this practice. That's considered an advertisement. Oh my gosh. The practice runs advertisements that promise discounts to Medicare beneficiaries. The practice routinely uses financial hardship forms, which state that the beneficiary is unable to pay the coinsurance or deductible without backup to that. So they're saying that if you can't prove it, you can't put it on the form, which, I mean, that's common sense. The practice gives copayment waivers without a good faith attempt to determine the beneficiary's ability to pay. There was one practice I was dealing with where they were waiving out of pocket that I found after we did an audit on a couple things. It just happened to be right in the record. And the patient was a CEO at a company. And right there, it even said the patient was coming in because of how tired they were and just fatigued they were from working at a Fortune 500 company. So in doing a couple queries, the patient made several $1 million a year, and they were waiving that patient's out of pocket. People, you got to be careful with this. Also, it shows that there was another one on the list says the practice doesn't collect copayments and deductibles unless the patient has Medicare supplemental insurance, such as Medigap coverage, which means the patient doesn't pay for the items or services. So here's an issue there. You've got a patient with Medi-Medi or a patient with Medicare AARP or a patient with Medicare, Anthem, whatever they have, their retirement plan. And so they're being billed and their crossovers being billed. But you've got a patient that's got straight Medicare or a patient that's got straight commercial insurance, and you're waiving their out of pocket. Well, you can't do for one that you're doing for another, and that would be a problem. And then it says the practice waives the copayment and charges more for services to Medicare patients than it does for other patients to offset the waiver. And then the last one talks about the practice fails to collect copayments and deductibles for a specific group of Medicare patients for reasons unrelated to financial need. So, for example, the practice waives coinsurance or deductibles for all patients from a particular primary care practice in order to get their referrals. Yeah, let's not do that. So I wanted to just, kind of bring this to your attention because it's becoming an out of control situation. And I just don't want to see you get caught up in that because this can really hurt your practice for a long time coming. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about my coding question today before I get into the other the information that we're going to talk about. So I have this practice and they came to me and they're from Ohio and they said, okay, so Terry, we have this patient and the doctor wants a diagnosis code for it. The patient came in and she said she's unhappy about the USA. She's unhappy about the doctors, about the teachers, about how her kids are being taught in schools. She hates millennials. She doesn't like our president. She's very opinionated. She won't do anything more or less than she thinks she needs or wants for her own treatment. She won't quit smoking. She wants her blood pressure to lower, but she's not willing to change any kind of meds or dosages or do anything. Basically, this patient is 100% unhappy. What do I do with that? And is there a code for it? Well, believe it or not, there is. There is a code, and it's under the Sign or Symptoms, the R, Chapter 19, R45.2. Complete unhappiness with life in general. So that's what you code for that. And it's funny that it's not funny, but it's funny to me that a doctor actually wanted to add that as a code on his medical record. But you know what? It is out there. There is a code for everything. There, you name it, it's there. So I just thought that was funny. Our coding question was brought to you today by Movado Watches, one of the world's leading watchmakers. Movado, modern, ahead of its time. Movado.com. Okay, so a couple of things I found, and I thought this was funny. This is from a CNN headline, Top 10 Health Questions America Asked Dr. Google in 2019. So blood pressure was one, the keto diet, and believe it or not, hiccups were among the most searched health-related questions on the search engine for Google, and that's new data they just published. So what are they actually looking at here? So They wanted to know also kind of things about in 2017, it said, what is lupus was one of the longest ones. But here's 2019. So number one was how to lower blood pressure. And basically because high blood pressure or hypertension, this is a person generally diagnosed with somebody who has a reading higher than 130 over 80. That changed, by the way. So that changed as from 140 over 90 to 130 over 80 in the last year. And that's recorded as two numbers. The top number is referred to as systolic blood pressure. The bottom number is referred to as diastolic blood pressure. So what basically was Googled was how to lower that without going to the doctor, and eating a healthy diet with less sodium, more potassium, losing weight, getting more exercise, relieving stress can all help lower blood pressure. And John Hopkins Medicine was the one that was searched out the most. What is keto? So that was actually, some people are, you talk about the keto diet, and I'm sure some people were like, yeah, that sounds good. And all of a sudden they go back home and they get on their phone or the internet on Google, and it's like, what is the ketogenic diet? And that was the top search for last year's and ranked second this year. It's a diet that's high in fats, moderate in proteins, and very low in carbs. And it forces the body into a state known as ketosis. So it breaks down a little bit easier that stored body fat and ingested molecules called ketones. And that was basically one of the issues as far as, is it safe? And so it's not sustainable over a long period of time, and it doesn't help you acquire healthy eating habits, according to the Google search on that. Number 3, how to get rid of hiccups. So this was funny, and I'm actually only going to give you a couple of these. So I thought this was funny. A question was, what causes hiccups and how to get rid of hiccups for this one. So hiccups start and stop for no reason. That was from the U.S. National Library of Medicine. But they usually happen when something irritates your diaphragm. If you eat too quickly, if you drink alcohol and you're not used to it excessively, if you're feeling nervous or excited, or if you take certain medicines. Now they can go away on your own, but for chronic hiccups that last more than a few days, can you imagine a few days? The person needs to go to the doctor. And that was in every single search, they said. But talk about holding your breath. There is one about, can you scare someone? Scaring someone is supposed to change the pattern of your diaphragm, because immediately you take in a big breath if somebody scares you. So that's why that does that. But it was just kind of funny that hiccups was number 3. And here's a couple more just so you know. And I'm not going to give you the info on that, but the other one was, how long did the flu last? What causes kidney stones? What is HPV? How do you lower your cholesterol? How many calories should I eat a day? And number 10, how long does alcohol stay in your system? And so that was another one. And it just said it depends on how long you've been drinking, what you've been drinking, and so on. There was a lot more information for that. So I just thought that was kind of some fun insight just to kind of take a look at that. So today I want to end with my personal insight, and actually kind of has to do with the holiday season. So one of the things I do, I'm a big online shopper. I hate the mall. I refuse to go. It offends me. I don't like being in there with just crowds and crowds of people. And I used to go a long time ago. I mean, everybody's gone to the mall before there was online shopping, but why would you do it now? Especially if you have Amazon Prime, it's free shipping. But so one of the things, I was giving a seminar in Anaheim last week, and I was talking about every time I order a big appliance or something that isn't clothes, and I don't order that off Amazon anyway, but if there's an appliance, like if I want a coffee pot or a couple things I'm getting for my daughter for Christmas, the package actually has information on the outside of what it is. And I was on my way to, and I was actually grumbling about it because when I went to the seminar, I had to leave at 5 a.m. because of something I was dealing with there as far as traffic issues. And so I walk outside my door, and there it is in full bloom. And I know my daughter's not listening to my podcast today, but is her toaster oven that she's getting for Christmas. And it was all over the outside of the package. Luckily, I was up and she wasn't, and I could run it into my bedroom and put a blanket over it. But I was just like, how dumb can these merchants be to put on the outside of the package what you're getting somebody for Christmas or for Hanukkah or whatever? So I was mentioning this in my class, and one of the gals that was sitting up front showed me where when you click on Amazon, you click on a product you want, and if you scroll down past the Add to Cart button, then right past that button, it'll say choose ship in Amazon packaging at checkout. So you can't hit the buy now with one click. You add it to your cart, and then you can add the box at no charge. And it's genius. And thank you for Kathy for showing me that. So a little life hack there. Hope everybody can remembers to use that, and you can get whatever you want, and nobody will know what it is except that you did go to Amazon. So everyone, hope you have an amazing holiday week. That's a wrap for me. See what I did there? On this Terry Tuesday, make it a great day, a great week, and thank you for listening to the CodeCast podcast.
For more information on medical coding, billing, auditing, and compliance, including how to hire Terry, follow Terry on Twitter at TerryCoder1 or visit her website at www.terryfletcher.net. Podcast producer Joe Kuzma. Music producer Dassassin Music.